So, something that I'm foreseeing, the Northwest is about to have just absolutely fascinating things happen politically that are going to probably change it forever. And that is, everyone's figuring out that nuclear power and natural gas are the only way you're going to get the amount of energy at the proper costs for any kind of AI farm. Because the amount of electricity you need. And then, as some of you have explained to me, then you need the water for the cooling. You would want probably an area of the country that generally the temperature is not very high for long periods of time of the year, so that you don't have to spend extra energy just to cool these AI farms. To make these AI farms, which I know already, the Gorge, that area there, that's one of the places that it's like Microsoft is already, they're on it. It's done. It's a done deal. AI farms are going there because of the hydropower. With possibly a nuclear power plant being put there, if I remember correctly. But Oregon has managed to fend off two things: uranium mining and LNG. They will not be able to do that. It will suddenly be a betrayal of the left, by the left, as they collapse under the piles of money that they're going to get to be good and shut the fuck up and go along with it, which their quote-unquote leadership will, because they're cheap. And that'll be it. It'll snuff out, the left will be snuffed out forever in the Northwest, because that's where the future is. The future is in the uranium, in LNG, and powering AI development. And so to have the ecotopia, you needed your indentured servants. Pardon me. But that's not going to happen anymore, and so the economy is going to have that issue of, well, you've got to produce something, and maintaining just the infrastructure in this part of the country is not cheap, because the rain, the amount of moisture, water always wins. The look at the verdant power coming up through the concrete. It's always a struggle, and that's the way it is. That's creation. Life isn't fair. So, I was looking at something. It's not your fault story. Microsoft had backed a AI project that turns out is totally phony. And one company that was not making something was getting paid, I think, by Microsoft, is I guess the idea. That company then pays the fake AI company, and the fake AI company just produces fake AI apps that don't work right, and so this money just goes in circles. And so I wanted to just point out, like, that's why I'm not that afraid of AI, because at some point it involves these people in the C-suite who are probably not engineers. They might be business people. They might actually really, but I mean, they're probably not engineers. It's probably not Professor Frick and putting together an AI and this, or overseeing it from the C-suite. That's most likely not what we're seeing here in a lot of cases. And so we're going to probably see more of this. That the Glavin doesn't work with the Vlavin, and and such, like the Dow leptons are inverted, so that's why we're gonna keep having some kind of problem. And so far, Grok seems to be the one I see people use that they get what they want from it. They get, or they get a satisfactory result. And it makes sense, they would. The way that I've heard Grok is set up, and the way that it the way that it looks through information and stuff. So, but that was an example of, it's not your fault you're not getting hired. There's all these companies that are openly faking it and like just ripping each other off. Like it's actually kind of fascinating to see how, like, so people understand like that. Yeah, that's, boomers are going to boomer, that kind of thing. They're going to just literally rip each other off until there's nothing left. And in a way of looking at this now with war, so people get this idea, because Asmongold and a lot of other younger people, because they're younger, they weren't there to see the wall come down. They don't really get, like, there's a lot of context of the end of the Soviet period that they don't get, and it's like, well, no, I know you want to think Russia's probably like this or like that, but you talk to them on your chat, when you're playing your fucking video game, buddy, like it's not like you can't contact these people. We couldn't contact them. You would meet a person who was a Russian back in the day, and you're like, how did you get here? And they'd go, oh, we came way back, and so, you guys don't really get, like, no, we've seen when it was bad, like much worse. And what you're seeing is, now who's the one loving this? It's Lindsey Graham again. How do you guys not get, like, when Destro, Serpentor, Dr. Scarab, fucking Boba Fett, he comes out of the shadows, and they're all hanging out talking about what a great idea this is. That it doesn't hit you, maybe this isn't that great of an idea. Maybe something else is going on here, because, these guys. And that's what's up. It doesn't matter that you hear some person who's a Ukrainian talk about, oh, my poor country, and it's like, yeah, but it got taken over, and we've admitted that we helped in doing that. We admitted it. Like, and in fact, I actually have even posted on this channel when George Soros penned a letter to the Ukrainians who took over their country, congratulating them, and then expressing how, and without our organization's help, I don't know, we are glad to be of help, or something like that. The Open Society Foundation. So this isn't, everybody's claims that this is all fucked up in an American operation are true and backed up by documents that can be easily found. Years of reporting that can easily be found. So a lot of people got to start getting this understanding of, like, no, why would you want the Western European powers to sort of have Russia on a leash? What's the point of that? And it's so they could squeeze minerals out of them for nothing, so that they could put their, like, many different types of people to work for nothing. And I know there's people who are probably like, well, that's what's happening right now. Well, if they weren't constantly having to deal with our shenanigans, and people started going through the process of achieving wealth, what happens? People want more. And Russia's not, nobody wants communism again. And they can't really even pull that kind of control mechanism off anymore. They benefit more from people actually having all kinds of fascinating private industries. So it's they need to do that, because this was one of the great secrets that all the socialists never bring up, is Russia couldn't do it as a Soviet republic. They needed outside help all the time. We call it technology transfers. And it was literally so that Western companies would constantly have some type of relationship with people inside. And of course, kind of the other way around too. But it just, I mean, they couldn't, they just didn't have hundreds and hundreds of years of people building up skill sets that then they were able to teach. And also then the Soviet Union, remember, was one of the most diverse experiments in diversity that has ever been seen. So you have all these people being taught in Russian new ideas that they knew nothing about. They know Russian, but it's also that that's not what they are. They're, Dagestani, Kazakhstani, Siberians, all mixed, everybody mixed in together. So there's only so long that you're going to have sort of Pareto's distribution demonstrate itself kind of nicely, and then it faded, and because there was no way of incentivizing that and that literally this is something that their own engineers, as like a decade or two went on, their own engineers had to tell us about this, that there's no way of incentivizing the next generation of Soviet engineers because that's not how their system really works. And because my generation, we only had so much access. And now we've got a lot of access, but we don't have much memory of what it was like. A lot of people aren't putting together, no, after the 1990s, it was going to take probably about 40 years for their society to come back together in some way that was going to be just even remotely kind of like, wow, that sounds like a place I'd like to visit. Now and then, there was those times in the 2000s, it was like a place to visit. And people would be like, man, it is pretty rickety, it's a pretty shy, it's got some shadiness to it. But the thing is, though, I'm sitting back and I'm like, now a lot of you you're the supposedly pro-Ukraine people, now you definitely have a problem. That you have military operations that the Ukrainians are putting on that they do not have the talent to do. These are not their people doing these things. We keep hearing these are unmanned vehicles. That's us. That's us. That's Western Europe. That's Germany. This and very likely Britain possibly. This isn't funny anymore. And there's the issue of like Putin's got to now do something, and that nobody's getting these people who are former Soviets. They do kind of get this understanding of we could just wipe the country, the western part, clean. We could wipe them clean. Why are we tolerating this? A lot of people don't get. Putin is holding back an unbelievably angry part of the Russian constituency because to them, the West has been fucking with them and their border countries ever since the wall came down, and they're like super pissed about it. And that now, because Russia had to inform people of who George Soros was. Not kidding. A lot of what people know about George Soros actually is something that in the earliest days was a thing that only people associated with Russian media would bring up on YouTube. Now everybody knows about this guy and knows, no, there's this whole class of exceedingly rich people who have nonprofit corporations that are constantly meddling with shit. And so now it's just one of these things of a lot of you got to get, you now have sort of that you are the violence, that it stops. Like we're the ones who are going, we want to end it. We actually have methods to end it. And how everybody will benefit from this. But you guys are ending up supporters of Ukraine, people left of center, things like that. You seem to like violence, or you think it's like really normal for people to have violence constantly happening, and I don't get it. More and more of us are like that. Really, nature's not built to do that very well. That's why you mostly have animals yell at each other and flex. But yeah, just some morning thoughts. All right, later.